Good morning, students. Today's topic is carcinoma intestine. So, these are the specific learning objectives of today's lecture. So, at the end of today's session, you must be able to describe the epidemiology, etiology, or risk factors of carcinoma intestine. You must be enumerate the precursor lesions as well as the pathogenesis, morphological features including gross and microscopic features of CA intestine. You must be enumerate the clinical features, the prognosis, how the tumor is spreading, along with its grading and staging of carcinoma intestine. And lastly, you must be enumerate the tumors of anal canal and tumors of appendix. To start with the introduction, the most common malignancy of gastrointestinal tract is adenocarcinoma, and it is the major cause of morbidity and mortality. This adenocarcinoma and the well differentiated neuroendocrine tumors, or it is also known as carcinoid tumors, both have equal tendency of incidence followed by lymphomas and sarcomas. Now, the epidemiology of intestinal cancer, that it arises, or we can say it peaks at 60 to 70 years of age, and very less, only 20% cases occur before 50 years of age. Males have more chances or more affected for the intestinal cancer. The main factor behind it is the dietary factor, which is closely associated with colorectal cancer due to low intake of unabsorbable vegetable fibers and high intake of refined carbohydrates and fat. Few medications like aspirin or other NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, have a protective effect against colorectal cancer. How? This effect is mediated by inhibition of enzymes like cyclooxygenase 2 COX-2, which is highly expressed in 90% cases of carcinoma and 40% cases of adenomas, and which is known to promote epithelial proliferation. So, inhibition of this enzyme cyclooxygenase 2 will particularly have a protective effect against epithelial proliferation, so ultimately protective effect against colorectal cancer. Few risk factors other than the dietary factors like cigarette smoking, which ultimately reduce the mucosal blood flow, alcohol intake that damages mucosal lining, deficiency of vitamin A, C and E. As we all know that vitamin A, C and E act as an antioxidant, free radical scavengers. So deficiency of these vitamins increase the damage by the oxidants. The few precursor lesions like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, physical inactivity and obesity are also prone for the colorectal cancer. The neoplastic polyps, they are the chief precursor lesion for the colorectal cancer. They are colonic adenomas, familial adenomatous polyposis, and hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer. So now we will discuss these three precursor lesions one by one briefly. The first one is the colonic adenomas. They are intraepithelial neoplasm, ranges from the small pedunculated polyp to large sessile lesions. Again here, males are more affected than the females. Family history has high risk of developing colonic adenomas, and for the person who is having the family history need to be screened by colonoscopy periodically. The Western diet and the lifestyle is the chief factor for the increasing cases of the colonic adenomas as well as colonic carcinoma in Asian countries, and they are characterized by the presence of epithelial dysplasia, and this epithelial dysplasia being act as a precursor lesion for the colorectal carcinoma. So, for the preventive purpose, removal of these adenomas will reduce the incidence of the colorectal carcinoma in future. Small polyps are silent, but the larger polyps can produce bleeding and ultimately anemia. And some polyps, by secreting large amount of proteins and the potassium, there may be hypoproteinemic hypokalemic state available in the patient of colonic adenomas. This is the morphological features. The size of the adenomas ranges between 0.3 to 10 centimeter in diameter. The pedunculated or the sessile, which is having a surface texture resembling a velvet or raspberry. You can see the marked arrow. The uppermost and the middle one is showing the gross images of colonic adenoma having a surface texture resembling of the velvet or the raspberry. Microscopically, these adenomas have epithelial dysplasia, nuclear hyperchromasia with elongation, stratification, prominent nucleoli, and eosinophilic cytoplasm with reduction in the number of goblet cells. This pedunculated adenoma has a fibromuscular stalk with prominent blood vessels. The lowermost arrow is showing the adenoma pedunculated adenoma has a fibromuscular stalk which is having a multiple blood vessels. Now, based on the morphological features, microscopically, the adenomas are classified in various types. The first one on the upper left is the tubular adenoma. The morphological feature of tubular adenoma are the round glands. You can see the arrowed glands are round in shape. The another type on the right upper is the villus adenoma. The glands are forming the slender villi, so the name is villus adenoma. The dysplastic epithelial cells you can see on the lower left image, which are the prognostic as well as the prominent feature of the colonic adenoma, and that's why they are the precursor lesion for the colorectal carcinoma. The lower left image is showing the serrated sessile adenomas, which has serrated architecture with lack of cytological dysplasia, but this serrated architecture is suggestive of precursor lesion for the colorectal carcinoma. This is the another image of serrated sessile lesion or serrated sessile adenoma, which is having intramucosal carcinoma part. You can see on the left arrow the dysplastic epithelial cells which breach the basement membrane to invade into the lamina propria compared to the right arrow. Right arrow has a intact basement membrane. The glands are sessile and serrated architecture, while on the left the epithelial cells are having dysplasia and they breach the basement membrane and enter into the lamina propria. The right side image is showing the high-grade dysplasia with prominent nuclear atypia, and the pattern is the cribriform. Cribriforming architecture is the pattern of the glands. So both the image are of colonic adenoma and having intramucosal carcinoma. So these are the precursor lesion of the colorectal cancer. The another precursor lesion for the colorectal cancer is the familial adenomatous polyposis. It is an autosomal dominant disorder. For the diagnosis of familial adenomatous polyposis, numerous colonic adenomas, at least hundreds, are necessary for the final diagnosis at the age of teenagers. The chief mutation behind development of familial adenomatous polyposis is adenomatous polyposis coli gene, and development of colorectal carcinoma in 100% untreated patient by the age of 30 is seen in mutation with APC gene. So the prophylactic colectomy is necessary in the person who is having APC gene mutation or having a family history of development of colonic adenomas. There are few extraintestinal manifestations with this autosomal dominant disorder, like congenital hypertrophy of retinal pigment epithelium. So basically, not the colonic adenomas which are prominent for the diagnosis of familial adenomatous polyposis, but the hypertrophy of retinal pigment epithelium is the prominent feature for the demarcation, or we can say the direction for the diagnosis of familial adenomatous polyposis. The third precursor lesion is hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer. It is again an autosomal dominant disorder, also known as Lynch syndrome, and it is a familial clustering of cancer. So, other than colorectal cancer, the person who is having hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer has a various sites of cancer other than the colon, like endometrium, stomach, ovary, uterus, brain, pancreas, and skin. These HNPCC tend to occur at a younger age compared to the sporadic cases, and it is due to mutation in the genes that encodes the proteins which are responsible for detection, excision, and the repair of errors that occur during DNA replication. And the most common mutations are MSH2 or MLH1 gene. So these are the three precursor lesions. One is the colonic adenomas, the second is familial adenomatous polyposis, and the third one is the hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer. These three conditions are the chief precursor lesions for the development of colorectal cancer. Now we will discuss regarding adenocarcinoma. So what is the pathogenesis of adenocarcinoma? The combination of two molecular events, One is genetic and another is epigenetic abnormalities. Under the heading of the genetic abnormalities, there are two pathways which are activated. One is the APC, that is again the adenomatous polyposis coli gene or beta catenin pathway, and another genetic pathway is the microsatellite instability pathway, which is associated with defects in the DNA mismatch repair and accumulation of mutation in the microsatellite repeat regions of the genomes. So these two are the genetic pathways, and the last one is the epigenetic abnormality or epigenetic events. And the most common of this epigenetic event is the methylation induced gene silencing. So epigenetic event enhances the progression of colorectal cancer with either APC beta catenin pathway or with the microsatellite instability pathway. We will discuss in the next upcoming slides these all pathways one by one. The first one is the APC or beta catenin pathway. Here, the inactivation of this APC tumor suppressor gene occurs. As we know, this APC is the important negative regulator of beta catenin and it is a component of WNT signaling pathway. Normally, the products of APC gene are the APC protein, and these proteins binds and cause degradation of beta catenin and ultimately prevents proliferation of cells, as beta catenin has a function of proliferation of cells, but APC gene has a control over beta catenin for the excessive proliferation of cells. But here both copies of APC gene is inactivated either by the mutation or the epigenetic event, that is the most common methylation. All both things lead to accumulation of beta catenin and which activate the transcription of CMYC and cyclic D1 and other genes to promote the cell proliferation. So at the site of injury in the intestine, along with the mutation in the APC gene, which is having a negative regulator effect over beta catenin, so beta catenin accumulation occur and proliferation of cell seen. One of the syndrome which is associated with APC inactivation is familial adenomatous polyposis, which we have already discussed in the previous slide of familial adenomatous polyposis as a precursor lesion for the colorectal cancer. The another mutation is the KRAS mutation. Loss of APC function is followed by mutation in the proto-oncogene KRAS, which is result in oncogene KRAS promotes the cell proliferation and also prevents apoptosis. So, mutation in the KRAS has two mechanisms. One is promotion of the cell proliferation and prevention of apoptosis. Both of these events has promotion for the colorectal carcinoma. The another kind of mutation is the SMAD2 and SMAD4 tumor suppressor gene mutation. These develop as a neoplastic process. These genes are the effectors of tissue growth factor signaling pathway and which is normally a potent inhibitor of cell proliferation. But the loss of this tumor suppressor gene will lead to uncontrolled cell proliferation. Next is the mutation of TP53 tumor suppressor gene, another tumor suppressor gene. It is seen in the 70 to 80% of colon cancer, and it is not affected in the adenoma. What is the mechanism of inactivation of this tumor suppressor gene? The one is the either chromosomal deletions. The second one is the methylation of CpG rich zone or CpG island, that are the region of some genes that frequently include the promoter and transcriptional start site, and methylating the cytokines. These are the cytokines. CpG rich zone and the CpG islands are the cytokines, and methylation of the cytokines will turn the gene off. So basically that is known as gene silencing. So either the gene silencing or the chromosomal deletion will lead to inactivation of this tumor suppressor gene, and inactivation of tumor suppressor gene will ultimately promote the cell proliferation. The another one event is the activation of telomerase. Now, telomere plays a role in stabilizing the chromosome. It is a part of a chromosome, and this telomere will shorten with each cell division until the whole cell senescence develops. While the telomerase is the enzyme which is required to maintain the telomere stability, hence cell immortality. Most of the adenomas do not show telomerase activity, but the colorectal carcinoma have increased telomerase activity. So, expression of telomerase or activation of telomerase will increase the lesion progress. So, this is the schematic diagram of progress of not from the normal colon to the carcinoma. The first image with normal colon, you can see the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis propria, and last one is the serosa. The initial event is the mutation of tumor suppressor gene APC that will lead to early adenomas. If the another mutation of protoncogene KRAS occur, the adenomas increases. If the another accumulation of mutation of tumor suppressor gene like SMAD, SMAD2 and SMAD4 along with TP53 mutation will again progress the adenomas toward the carcinoma, and the last event is the activation of telomerase, which we have already discussed one by one, ultimately lead to the carcinoma. This is the same image showing the progress of normal colon to the carcinoma with the start of the mutation in the APC gene with APC and beta catenin, either the genetic pathway or the methylation via epigenetic event, followed by proto-oncogene mutation like KRAS and few tumor suppressor gene mutation like TP53, SMAD2 and SMAD4, and lastly the telomerase activation will ultimately lead to the colorectal cancer from the adenomas. So up to these were the APC beta catenin pathway related genetic events. The another genetic event is the microsatellite instability pathway or defective DNA repair pathway. So microsatellites, what are the microsatellites? First, they are the repeated sequence or the tandem repeats of 1 to 6 nucleotide in the genome, and they become unstable during the normal cellular replication that will lead to insertion or deletion of bases within this region. But the DNA mismatch repair genes rapidly correct this error, either insertion or deletion. Correct these errors to maintain the microsatellite length. But mutation in these normal DNA repair genes, or we can say mismatch repair defects, lead to accumulation of these abnormal microsatellites, and that will refer to as microsatellite instability. About 6 mismatch repair genes have been identified, which are listed as HMSH2, 6, MLH1, MLH3, PMS1 and PMS2. These microsatellites are typically present at non-coding region of genome, but some microsatellite sequences are also located at coding or promoted region of the genes which involve in the regulation of cell growth. For example, microsatellite instability involves type 2 tissue growth factor receptors. Now normally TGF inhibits colonic epithelial cell proliferation, but mutation in the type 2 TGF receptor have uncontrolled cell growth or cell proliferation. So another event is the pro-apoptic gene BAX. Its mutation lead to loss of BAX gene, which may increase the survival of genetically abnormal clone cells. Basically or normally, what is happening? The BAX gene have have a function of removal abnormal clones of cells via apoptosis. But due to mutation of the BAX gene or lead to loss of BAX gene, and ultimately there will be survival of abnormal clones of cells and the proliferation of the cell, ultimately uncontrolled cell growth and carcinoma intestine occur. These DNA mismatch repair defects may also lead to mutation in the oncogenes like BRAF and silencing of such group of genes such as MLH1 due to CpG island hypermethylation. And so defective DNA repair gene lead to combination of microsatellite instability, BRAF mutation and methylation of specific target genes like MLH1. All these events ultimately produce colorectal cancer. This is the graphical representation of microsatellite instability pathway. First one is the normal colon image. Mutation in the DNA mismatch repair gene, either inherited or acquiredly, lead to microsatellite instability that involves promotion of region of genes that involve in the cell differentiation or apoptosis. So accumulation of this mutation will regulate the cell growth, differentiation as well as the apoptosis. So this is the another genetic pathway that is known as microsatellite instability pathway, which is involving in the production of colorectal cancer. The next event is the epigenetic. Epigenetics is a reversible heritable alteration in the gene expression which occurs without mutation, and it is unrelated to the gene nucleotide sequence. Epigenetic events enhances progression along with both the genetic pathway like APC beta catenin pathway and microsatellite instability pathway. And this epigenetic changes involves histone modification and the DNA methylation, which both affect the gene expression. And out of these, the most common epigenetic event that expressed in the carcinoma colon is hypermethylation. Now let's see the frequency and the common sites for the carcinoma colons. The most common site is the right ascending colon, which is having almost 30% chances of occurrence of colorectal cancer. The second most site is the sigmoid colon. The third is the rectum, then the left colon, the descending one, and lastly the lowest chances for the transverse colon. Now let's discuss the gross features of colon cancer. It has a various architecture, or we can say various patterns. The first one is the exophytic polypoidal mass, which is commonly seen over the right side of the colon. You can see the growth in the lumen of colon is bulky or exophytic, or also known as cauliflower like, as well as the polypoidal part that extend from one wall of cecum and ascending the colon. They rarely cause intestinal obstruction as they are the exophytic one. The another type of the lesion of colon cancer is the annular or constricting type, which is commonly seen on the left side of the colon. The characteristic feature is the napkin ring or the apple core constriction that will lead to the narrowing of the lumen of colon, and that's why this type of lesion, annular or constricting type of lesion, are associated with intestinal obstruction due to dilatation of one part and constriction of the lesional part. The next one is the diffuse or tubular type of the tumors. They are similar with the Linitis plastica type of the lesion of stomach cancer. They show diffuse flattening and the thickening of colon that involving the mucosa initially, but later on it will involve the entire wall of intestine. The fourth type of the lesion of the colon cancer is infiltrative or the ulcerative type. You can see in the gross images the lesion of infiltrative or ulcerative type has raised and irregular edges with central excavated ulcerated area, and that often infiltrate the deep layers of the bowel wall. Now the microscopic features of the colon cancer. The most of the tumor show the glands of variable size and configuration, which are separated by moderate amount of stroma. Mitotic figures are usually abundant. The lumen of the gland is usually filled with inspissated eosinophilic mucous material and nuclear debris, that is known as dirty necrosis. Often there will be small stromal desmoplasia, and desmoplasia will ultimately cause the firm consistency of that gross tumor. Microscopically, these adenocarcinomas are differentiated by well, moderate, and poor architecture. Poor differentiated carcinomas have very few glands. There is a subtype of adenocarcinoma is the mucinous adenocarcinoma, when the tumors secrete abundant mucin and that will accumulate within the intestinal wall and are associated with poor prognosis. The another subtype is the signet ring carcinoma, which is again similar to the signet ring type of cells which are seen in case of the gastric cancer that constitute more than 50% of the tumors. So these are the microscopic images of the colon cancer of adenocarcinoma. First two images are having dysplastic glands with stromal invasion, while the last image is showing the mucinous type of differentiation along with signet ring type of cell. So now what could be the clinical features? The clinical features are depend on the site of the cancer or lesion. When it is over the left side of the colon, there will be occult bleeding, and this bleeding, if it is in a continuous manner, that will also ultimately lead to anemia. The another one is the altered bowel habits or pain and discomfort in the left lower quadrant. As we have discussed various types of lesions which have a left side colon having obstructive features, intestinal obstruction occur, you can see the pain and discomfort are due to intestinal obstruction over the left lower quadrant, while the right side colon has bleeding tendency, so bleeding will lead to now what are the various investigations that are needed for the diagnosis of colon carcinoma. The first one is the occult blood loss in the stool. Tumor markers like carcinoembryonic antigens CEA and CA19-9 that are elevated in the case of colorectal cancer. The flexible sigmoidoscopy are the diagnostic part. The colonoscopy helps the direct visualization of the lesion, and one can take a biopsy for the histopathological analysis from that lesion, and it is the investigation of the choice. The next one is the radiology. Double contrast barium enema is the radiological investigation of choice when the patient is contraindicated for the colonoscopic test. And double contrast barium enema will show the apple core appearance on the radiograph. Ultrasonography can be done for the screening of liver metastasis of colon carcinoma, and spiral CT scans are used for the advanced lesion and advanced diagnosis. Now the prognosis, that is depend on the two main prognostic factors. One is the depth of invasion and another is the presence of lymph node metastasis. Invasion into the muscularis propria reduce the survival rate of the patient, which is reduced further in the presence of lymph node metastasis. Poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma and the mucinous type of adenocarcinomas are associated with poor prognosis. Now let's discuss how the tumor is spreading. The first one is the direct spread. The tumor can spread directly either transverse way, longitudinal way, or in the radial direction. If the tumor spread transversely, then it will spread circumferentially round the intestinal wall and cause intestinal obstruction. Longitudinally, it spread in the both direction, while If it spread radically, then the spread of the tumor will be directly into the submucosa and ultimately into the muscularis propria. And further, if it spread radially, then into the serosa or the pericholic fat, lymphatics and veins in the mesenteric part of the bowel. The another way of the spreading of tumor is the lymphatic spread. Tumors may spread through the lymphatics into the regional lymph nodes, and based on that spreading, they are grouped into three types. One is N1. The nodes which are immediate to the bowel wall are the N1 group. Nodes which are arranged along the ileocolic, right colic, mid colic, left colic, and the sigmoid arteries are grouped as a N2, and the apical nodes which are around the superior and inferior mesenteric vessels are grouped as a N3. So based on the groups, they are labeled for the lymphatic spread. The another way is the blood spread. Venous invasion will lead to the blood-borne metastasis to the liver via portal vein. They also spread to the lungs and to the bones via hematogenous metastasis. The last one is the transcoelomic spread, which is rarely seen, and in this case the tumor directly spread by dislodging from the serosa of the bowel, and it will directly deposited at subperitoneal lymphatics or within the peritoneal cavity. These are the gross as well as the microscopic image of the metastatic tumor. The first image is the microscopic image of the lymph node metastasis. You can see the most of the lymph node architecture is replaced by the malignant tumor cells. The middle image is showing the subpleural nodule, single subpleural nodule of the colorectal carcinoma mets to lung. And the third image is of the liver metastasis, two large nodules which is having a middle necrosis, central necrosis with the multiple metastatic nodules, which is showing the spread of tumor from the colonic wall to the liver via portal vein. Now the gradings. We have discussed few things regarding gradings in the previous slides, as they are graded as a well differentiated, moderately differentiated and poorly differentiated. 15 to 20% of all adenocarcinomas are well differentiated, and under the heading of well differentiated, the glands are well formed or simple tubule formation which are in uniform manner with basally oriented nuclei are seen, and the epithelium is somewhat resembles adenomas. In the case of moderately differentiated adenocarcinoma, it accounts for 60 to 70% of all carcinoma. Tubules may be simple or complex or may be irregular, and nuclear polarity lost compared to the well differentiated adenocarcinoma. And the poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma accounts for 15 to 20% of all carcinomas. It has less than 50% of gland formation as well as tubule formation, and majority of the tumor consists of seeds of that malignant cells without forming glands. We will see microscopic images of these three types of grading. You can see in the well differentiated adenocarcinoma, The glands are well-formed, uniform, and the cells and nucleus are basally located. Polarity is maintained. While in the moderately differentiated adenocarcinoma, very few tubules are there, although they are present, but they are not in uniform manner, they are irregular and complex form. While in the poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma, the glands are very few and the malignant tumor cells are forming the sheets. Architecture is in the sheet form. So based on the microscopic architecture and the formation of glands as well as tubules, the adenocarcinomas are graded as well differentiated, moderately differentiated, and poorly differentiated. Now the staging. Staging is given by the American Joint Committee on the Cancer AJCC, that is known as TNM classification of colorectal cancer. The another classification is the Astler-Collar modification of Duke's classification. Here we will discuss the TNM classification of colorectal cancer. The name TNM suggests tumor, node, and metastasis. So first the tumor. Based on the tumor biography, this is graded. One is the TIS, means in situ dysplasia or intramucosal carcinoma. If tumor invades submucosa, then it is labeled as T1. If tumor invades into but not through the muscularis mucosa, then label is as a T2. If tumor invades the muscularis mucosa, but if it is less than 0.1 centimeter, then T3A, between 0.1 to 0.5, T3B, 0.5 to 1.5 centimeter, T3C, and more than 1.5 centimeter beyond the muscularis mucosa, then T3D is labeled. If the tumor penetrates the visceral peritoneum or the adjacent organ, then based on that visceral peritoneal penetration T4A, and for the invasion into the other organs T4B label is given. The next N for the lymph nodes or regional lymph nodes. If lymph nodes cannot be assessed, then NX. No metastasis in the lymph node seen, then N0. If metastasis to 1 to 3 lymph node, then for the 1 lymph node N1A, 2 to 3 lymph node N1B, and if tumor deposit in the subserosa and mesentery, then N1C. For more than 4 lymph node metastasis, 4 to 6 regional lymph node metastasis, N2A, and more than 7 lymph node metastasis, it is labeled as N2B. Lastly, the distance metastasis. If it is not assessed, then MX. No metastasis is there, then M0, and distance metastasis to one organ or site, then M1A, and if it is more than one organ or more than one site, then 1B. So based on this T and M, tumor, lymph node status, and the metastasis status, gradings and stagings are given for the colorectal carcinoma, that is known as TNM classification. Now we will discuss few things regarding tumors of anal canal. Anal canal can be divided into the three zones. The uppermost zone is the columnar rectal epithelium, middle one is the transitional epithelium, and the lower one is the stratified squamous epithelium. So based on these three epithelial layers, carcinoma of anal canal can be either glandular or squamous pattern of differentiation, or it can be of basaloid pattern. When the tumor cells are derived from the basal layer of this transitional epithelium, they are known as basaloid pattern. And if the entire tumor is displaying this basaloid pattern, then it is known as cloacogenic carcinoma. The pure squamous cell carcinoma of the anal canal, which is arising from the lower zone of the anal canal, which is often associated with HPV infection, and it has a precursor lesion of condyloma acuminata. You can see the schematic diagram of the anal canal region. The uppermost part is having a columnar epithelium, that is colorectal zone. The middle one is the transitional zone, and the lowermost near the perianal skin is having a stratified squamous epithelial zone. So if the tumor arising from the columnar epithelium, then it is having a glandular pattern. If it is arising from the transitional zone, then the transitional pattern. And if it is arising from the lowermost zone, then it is having a squamous pattern. This is the precursor lesion for the squamous cell carcinoma of anal canal, that is condyloma acuminata. You can see condyloma acuminata has microscopic features of acanthosis. You can see the flattening of the papillae, skin papillae or epidermal papillae, along with papillary feature that is known as papillomatosis. Then the second image is showing the coilocytic changes. You can see the perinuclear halo around the nucleus of the epidermis, which is known as coilocytic changes. And the third image is the showing dysplastic changes in the epithelial cells. So for the diagnosis of condyloma acuminatum, we have three features. One is acanthosis and papillomatosis, coilocytic changes, and dysplastic changes. And this condyloma acuminatum is associated with HPV infection, and it acts as a precursor lesion for the squamous cell carcinoma of the anal canal. This image is showing the pure squamous cell carcinoma of anal canal. The left image is showing the invasion of the malignant squamous cell into the dermis and lamina propria, while the magnification of that image is showing the malignant tumor cells which are having a prominent nucleoli, apoptic bodies, and very scant eosinophilic cytoplasm. The next one is the anal transition zone carcinoma. Anal transition zone carcinoma has multiple features. It has either the glandular pattern or having a basaloid pattern. So as it is arising from the transition zone of the anorectal region, one cannot easily differentiate the pattern which is showing the tumor, whether it is basaloid pattern or squamoid pattern or the glandular pattern. The right image is showing the basaloid carcinoma. You can see the basal cells which are arising from the basal layer of the epithelium has a peripheral palisading pattern arrangement with prominent nucleoli and hyperchromatic nuclei. So this image is showing the anal basaloid carcinoma. Now we will discuss brief on the tumors of appendix. The most common tumor of the appendix is the carcinoid tumor, or it is also known as well differentiated neuroendocrine tumor. This neoplasm is always almost benign. and it frequently appears as a solid bulbous swelling at the distal tip of the appendix, and this lesion can spread either intramurally or transmurally. Other than carcinoid or well-differentiated neuroendocrine tumor of appendix, there can be possibility of adenomas and non-mucin producing adenocarcinoma in the list of tumor of appendix, and if they are present they can cause enlargement of appendix and obstruction of colon, which will produce pain, and it mimics as an acute appendicitis. The precursor lesion for the adenoma or adenocarcinoma can be mucocele, but mucocele is a very benign condition which is known as dilated appendix, which is filled with mucin, and this dilated appendix can cause obstructed appendix condition, and on the long basis this mucosal can convert into mucinous cyst adenoma or mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma. Now this mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma can invade through that appendiceal wall and spread as a intraperitoneal seeding, and this mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma, after spreading as an intraperitoneal seeding, they can be mistaken as a mucinous ovarian tumor in the woman, and in the advanced cases of excessive mucinous production by the mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma, the whole abdomen will be filled with tenacious semi-solid mucin, and this condition is known as pseudomyxoma peritoni. These are the gross images of the mucosal of appendix. You can see the dilated appendix is having filled with excessive mucin. The right lower image is showing the burst out of appendix following injury to the dilated appendix, and the whole grayish white mucin is came out from that injured appendix. This is the microscopic image of mucosal of appendix. You can see the benign epithelium of the appendix, while the cavitary part is showing the excessive mucinous component. This is the microscopic image of mucinous cyst adenoma of appendix. You can see the proliferation of glands of appendix along with mucin secreting glands is having vacuoles, and this image is having mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma of appendix. The gross image of appendix is showing the exophytic growth over the surface, and its microscopic image is showing dysplastic epithelial lining of glands along with prominent nucleoli, hyperchromatic nuclei, scant cytoplasm. So all the features of malignancies are seen in the case of mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma of appendix. Now, the most common tumor of appendix is the carcinoid tumor or well-differentiated neuroendocrine tumor. The gross image is showing a well-demarcated round lesion, whitish to yellowish lesion over the appendix, and the microscopic image of the carcinoid or well-differentiated neuroendocrine tumor is showing a well-developed seeds of the malignant tumor cells which are having a salty nucleus. The magnification of the image, the last third image, is showing the magnified picture of that microscopic image, you can see the salt and pepper appearance of the nucleus in the individual cells. So, at the end of this session, let's discuss the summary of today's session. The most common GI malignancy is the adenocarcinoma and well differentiated neuroendocrine tumors or carcinoid tumors. The main precursor lesions could be the dietary factors, smoking, alcohol, inflammatory bowel disease that includes ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease and obesity, while the neoplastic polyps like colonic adenomas, which are having the characteristic features of epithelial dysplasia. The second one is the familial adenomatous polyposis, which is autosomal dominant disorder. For the diagnosis of FAP, more than 100 polyps are required and the APC gene mutation is there. The third one is the hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer, HNPCC. It is also an autosomal dominant disorder, also known as Lynch syndrome, and it is having a MSH1 and MLH1 gene mutation, that is DNA mismatch repair gene mutation. The adenocarcinoma has multiple pathogenesis. The one is the genetic events. It includes APC or beta catenin pathway and microsatellite instability pathway. The second event is the epigenetic event. It includes methylation. Grossly, the adenocarcinomas could be annular or tubular or exophytic or ulcerative type, and microscopically they are based on the patterns. They could be graded as a well, moderate or poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma. The depth of the invasion and the lymph node metastasis are the main two prognostic factors. The tumor can be spread either direct, lymphatic, hematogenous or transcoelomic way. Staging of adenocarcinoma colon is based on TNM classification. And lastly, tumors of anal canal are either glandular or squamous or basaloid pattern, and the tumors of appendix, the most common is the carcinoid tumors, while another are the mucinous cyst adenocarcinoma. Thank you.